Good evening. Welcome to this video on ISO 27001 viewed through the lens of vulnerability management. I'm glad you have joined me in this learning journey where we connect the dots between global security standards and real world risk reduction. In a world where data breaches, cyber attacks, and compliance pressure continue to grow, organizations can no longer afford to treat vulnerability as just a technical glitch. They are business risk, and managing them effectively requires a structured, proven approach. That's where ISO 27001 comes in. Recognized worldwide as the gold standard for information security management system, ISO 27001 provides a comprehensive framework to protect information assets. But what does that mean in practical terms? Well, how does it help identify, track, and remediate vulnerability across complex IT environments? In this video, we'll explore exactly that. We'll break down the standards structure, walk through each relevant clauses, and show how vulnerability management fits into the broader ISO risk treatment lifecycle. Whether you are a student, a security professional, or a business leader, this session is designed to simplify, clarify, and empower. Let's get started and see how ISO 27001 can help you build not just compliance but real, measurable cyber resilience through smart vulnerability management. Do note, this is part 4 of this series on vulnerability. We covered few other aspects earlier. Overall, there are 5 videos on this subject from different angle, from different regulations. The whole objective of this series is to ensure that students and experts of this field of vulnerability management have enough ammunition to either build a new system or enhance your current systems, or more, to increase our knowledge base. Hence, I would request you to review it, share it with those curious minds who would be requiring the help. Share so that the knowledge spreads. The whole objective again is to upgrade our skills, our knowledge on the subject from different angles. This is your host, Savit Vittal Salian. Namaskaram. In an increasingly interconnected and digitized world, managing information security risk is more critical than ever. While frameworks such as NIST CSF and OWASP addresses specific technical domains, ISO 27001 provides a comprehensive internationally recognized standard for establishing, implementing, and maintaining an information security management systems. From a vulnerability management perspective, ISO 27001 offers structured controls and governance mechanism that elevates the vulnerability management from a technical task to a core enterprise-wide security process. This video explores how VM aligns with ISO 27001, how it fits into the risk management and control ecosystem, and how organizations can integrate vulnerability identification, assessment, and remediation in their ISMS to improve resilience, compliance, and operational excellence. In simple language, in today's digital world, keeping information secure is more than just installing antivirus software or patching a few servers. It's about building a structured organization wide approach to protect data, systems, and people from threats. And that's where ISO 27001 comes in. ISO 27001 is a globally recognized standard for information security management. It helps organizations build a systematic process called as Information Security Management System or ISMS to identify, manage and reduce the risk to information assets. Now, from a vulnerability management perspective, ISO 27001 plays a very important role. Why? Because vulnerability like outdated softwares, weak password, misconfigured system, or even missing patches are one of the biggest ways attackers get in. If left unchecked, they can lead to data breaches, service disruption, and regulatory fines. This standard doesn't just tell you to be secure, it provides clear controls and requirements that directly supports identifying vulnerabilities, assessing their risk, applying corrective actions, and continually improving how you manage them. In other words, ISO 27001 helps turn vulnerability management from a one time activity into an ongoing business process with roles, responsibilities, and records that auditors and regulators can trust. In this video, we will explore how ISO 27001 maps to the vulnerability management lifecycle. We look at how supports technical and governance practices and helps teams stay both secure and compliant in a structured way. Whether you are building a security program or preparing for certification or simply improving how you manage weaknesses in your system, this framework provides a trusted foundation to do it right. ISO 27001 is a globally adopted standard developed by the International Organization for Standardization or ISO and the International Electrotechnical Commission or IEC. Its primary objective is to help organizations systematically manage information security risk and protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, or otherwise known as CIA, of information. In simple language, the purpose of 27001 is to help organizations protect their information, whether it is stored digitally, on paper, or even spoken. In simple terms, it's about keeping confidential data private, making sure information is accurate and trustworthy, ensuring systems and services are available when needed. To achieve this, the standard provides a structured system called the Information Security Management System or ISMS. The ISMS helps organizations identify security risk, put controls in place to manage those risks, continuously improve their information security over time. It's not just about technology, it also includes people, process, and physical security. So, what's in scope for ISO 27001? Well, the scope defines what part of the organization and which type of the information the standard applies to. An organization can apply ISO 27001 to the entire business across all departments and offices, or just to a specific service, location, or system depending on what needs protection. The scope depends on the organization's size and structure, legal, regulatory, and contractual requirements. It also depends on the nature of its information assets and business risk. In a vulnerability management context, the purpose ensures that vulnerability management is not just about fixing the bugs, but about protecting confidentiality, integrity, and availability of all critical information. The scope ensures you define which systems are in scope for vulnerability scanning and patching. The scope ensures who is responsible for fixing the issue. The scope also ensures which risks are most critical in your business operation. In summary, ISO 27001 helps organization build a plan to protect their information by identifying what needs to be protected, understanding the risk, and managing them in a consistent, ongoing way. Let's now look at the structure and the standards. Well, as shown in the screen, there are two aspects here, clause 4 to 10 and Annex A control. Well, to put it simply, ISO 27001 is not just a list of technical rules. It's a structured framework that helps organizations build, manage, and improve their information security system in a logical, step-by-step way. Think of it like building a secure house. You plan it, you build it with strong material, you check it regularly, and you fix anything that goes wrong. So now let's break down the structure into simple parts. The main section. These are mandatory parts of the standards. Every organization must follow them to be ISO 27001 certified. The first one is clause 4, which is context of the organization. What it means is the meaning is understand your business, what needs protection, and who is involved. Clause 5, which is leadership. It's about senior management must lead and support the security effort. Clause 6, which is planning. It's about identifying the risk, set goals, and decide how to deal with threats. 7, which is support. It is ensuring people, tools, training, and documentation are in place. Clause 8, which is operation, which is put your information security plan into action. Clause 9, which is performance evaluation, which is about monitor and measure how well your security program is working. Clause 10 is about improvement, which is fix problems and make your security better over time. These clauses form the core of the ISMS, the Information Security Management System. Now, Annex A is about security controls. Do note there are 114 controls in 4 themes. Annex A is a reference list of controls, optional but widely used. These are security practices you can choose from to manage specific risk. In 2022 version, Annex A is organized into 4 simple themes. The first is organization. That's the theme. What it covers? It covers policies, roles, responsibility, risks, processes. Next is people. It covers employee awareness, training, access control. Next is physical, which is office security, equipment protection, etc. Next is technological, which is covers password, firewall, encryption, vulnerability management tool. Note, you only need to apply the controls that are relevant to your risk and scope. So how does it all work together? Well, first, you define what's at risk. That's your clause 4. Yeah? Second, your leader commits to protecting it, which is clause 5. Next is you plan and implement the control. That's between clause 6 and 8. And then you measure and improve over time, which is clause 9 and 10. In summary, the structure of ISO 27001 combines a strong management framework, that is clause 4 to 10, with flexible security controls. That's Annex A. This is to help organizations protect information in a systematic, business aligned way. I hope now you understand the context of the screen, the structure of the standard. Let's look at the role of vulnerability management in ISO 27001? Well, the goal is to protect valuable information by identifying the risk and managing them in a structured way. And one of the biggest risks to information security, vulnerability in softwares or systems and processes. That's where vulnerability management comes in. So, what is vulnerability management? Well, VM is the process of finding weakness in your systems, like outdated software or misconfiguration, assessing their risk, and fixing or reducing those risks in a timely manner. It's like a routine health check for your IT environment, detecting issues before attackers do. So, question is, how does ISO 27001 supports vulnerability management? Well, ISO 27001 doesn't give technical steps like security tool manual. Instead, it gives you a management framework that supports VM through. I said earlier, 6 is planning, 8 is operation. 6. Planning encourages identifying vulnerabilities as part of your risk assessment. 8 is operation. It encourages to put a repeatable vulnerability management process in place. Clause 9, which is performance. It encourages to measure how well vulnerabilities are tracked and resolved. Annex A, it is encourages requiring procedures to detect, report and handle vulnerabilities, or emphasizes secure coding and patch management practices. Now, why vulnerability management matter in ISO 27001? Well, it matters because it prevents attacks by identifying weaknesses early on. It supports compliance by showing you manage technical risk proactively. It reduces risk of data loss, downtime or reputational damage. It provides audit evidence that your systems are being regularly assessed and secured. Vulnerability management in a ISM lifecycle aligns how? Well, starts off with identify risk, which is run the scan, code reviews, and config audit. Second, assess and plan, which is prioritize based on the business impact. Next is threat risk, which is or treat risk, which is patching, reconfigure, or apply compensating control. And the last step is monitor and improve, which is track the metrics, close the gap, and prevent reoccurrence. If you put it in simple line, it is vulnerability management is a core engine that powers ISO 27001 risk-based approach by identifying, managing, and fixing technical weaknesses before they become a real threat. Let's now look at embedding vulnerability management in the ISO 27001 ISMS life cycle. Well, in ISO 27001, understanding the context of the organization means figuring out the big picture before you start securing anything. It's about answering what are we protecting, why are we protecting, and from whom. Well, what clause 4 asks you to do? Well, clause 4 tells you to define 4 key things before building your security system. First, internal and external issues. In plain terms, it means what are the things inside and outside the organization that can affect the security? Example, business goals, industry risk, regulation, culture, cyber threats. The second is interested parties, which means who cares about information security. Example, customers, regulators, partners, employees. Next is needs and expectations. In plain term, it means what do those people or group expect in terms of data protection and system security. The fourth is scope of the ISMS. Which part of the company, system, or processes are included in your information security effort? Now, Why this matters for vulnerability management? Well, if you don't understand your context, you may miss critical systems during vulnerability scans. You might underestimate the risk in key business processes. You might fail to meet important compliance or customer requirement. Vulnerability management must be based on what's important to your specific organization, not just generic checklist. Example, imagine a mid-sized finance service company. Now, what's the internal issue? Legacy banking apps with poor patching support. Example. What are external issues? Regulatory pressures from RBI, GDPR, and so on. Now, what about interested parties? Customers, auditors, cloud vendors. What are the needs? Zero tolerance for data leaks, fast remediation cycle. And what's the scope? Well, all systems that store or process customer financial data. This is an example in a simplified form. Now, vulnerability management process can be tailored, scanning legacy systems more often, prioritizing compliance related fix, and reporting findings to the risk team. In summary, clause 4 is about understanding your environment, your stakeholders, and your risk landscape. That way, your vulnerability management and your entire security program is focused on what matters most. So that's your first pillar. Let's now look at second pillar, leadership, or clause 5. Now, what is clause 5 all about? Well, clause 5 of ISO 27001 focuses on leadership roles in building a strong information security program. In simple terms, it means top management must lead by example, support the information security effort, and make sure everyone knows it's important. This isn't just a technical team's job. Senior leader must be involved and accountable for. So, what does clause 5 require leaders to do? Well, here are key responsibilities for top management under this clause. Starting with leadership and commitment. It means senior leaders must actively support and show commitment to the security program. They must approve and communicate a clear security policy, what we protect and how. We must assign roles and ensure everyone knows who is responsible for what, including the vulnerability management role. Why leadership is critical in vulnerability management? Well, without leadership support, vulnerability management may not get fixed, or vulnerability management cannot fix all the gaps in time. Without leadership support, teams might ignore or delay security testing. Budgets for tool or training might be denied. No one feels responsible when something goes wrong. But when leaders are involved, VM gets proper tools, staff, and priority. Security becomes part of the company culture. Findings are acted on quickly and seriously. Example, a company performs monthly vulnerability scan, but no one reviews the report seriously. After a leadership meeting where the CEO emphasized security as a business priority, clear roles are assigned. Wherein, example, IT team fixes, risk team tracks. SLAs are defined for high risk issues. Vulnerability management dashboards are reviewed in leadership meeting. That's clause 5 in action. Hope you understand now what clause 5 is all about. Key message. Clause 5 reminds us that security starts at the top. If leadership doesn't take vulnerability management seriously, the rest of the organization won't either. Hence, clause 5 makes leadership responsible for setting the direction, assigning responsibility, and showing visible support for the organization's information security goals, including vulnerability management. Now let's look at the third pillar, planning, or clause 6. So, what is clause 6 about? Well, clause 6 is all about planning ahead, to manage risk to your information. It helps organization answer what are our security risks? What are we doing about them? How do we measure success? This includes planning how to identify risk, set objective, choose controls, and manage changes. In short, think before you act. So, what are the key parts of clause 6? Well, it's about understand what could go wrong, like cyber attacks or data leaks, and decide how to manage it. It's about list the security controls you are using and explain why you choose or skipped each one. Set clear goals like reduce patching time or run monthly vulnerability scans. Or plan how you will handle update to systems, process, or threat in the future. What this mean for vulnerability management? Well, vulnerability management is a core part of risk planning. Clause 6 helps you identify which vulnerability matters most to your business. It helps you to decide how often to scan and what tools to use. It helps to set goals like resolve high risk issues within 10 days. It helps you to plan how to improve your VM process over time. Example, let's say a company has outdated software that hasn't been patched. Under clause 6, they assess the risk of keeping it. Decide to enforce monthly scan and patch cycle. Add this to their objective, which is example reduce unpatched critical vulnerability by 90% in 6 months, or include their plan in the security documentation for audits. That's smart, proactive vulnerability planning. Why this clause matters? Well, without good planning, vulnerability management is reactive and patchy. Resources are wasted on low priority issues. You can't show improvement over time. But with clause 6, you set a clear roadmap, focus on what matters, and make your VM process measurable and strategic. In simple terms, clause 6 helps organization plan how to deal with risk like vulnerabilities by setting clear goals, choosing the right control, and building a plan for continuous improvement. I hope clause 4, 5, and 6 has been understood, at least from a base perspective. You can dig deeper or you can revisit this part of the video so you can have it over and again till the time you are clear of it. Clause 7. Now, what is clause 7 about? Well, clause 7 is all about giving your information security program the support it needs to succeed. Think of it like this: even the best security plan will fail if people aren't trained, tools aren't not available, or no one knows what's expected. So, clause 7 ensures the organization has the right people, right tool, right knowledge, and communication to keep information secure. So, what are the key parts of clause 7? Well, there are resource, competency, awareness, communication, and documented information. In plain language, it means making sure there's enough time, money, and people and tools to support security activity. Staff should have the skills and knowledge to do their security job properly. Everyone should understand why security matters and their roles in protecting the data. Share the right security info with the right people clearly and on time. Keep policy, procedure, and records well documented and available when needed. What this means for vulnerability management? Well, to run a good VM program, you need more than just a scanner. Clause 7 ensures you have enough budget and staff to run scans and fix the issues. Clause 7 ensures you hire or train people who understand threat, patching, and secure conflicts. Clause 7 ensures it makes staff aware of the risk, like phishing or insecure practices. It ensures that communicating vulnerabilities clearly is happening between IT team, security team, and management. It ensures documents are all available of all the findings, fixes, report, and processes. Example, let's say a company buys a vulnerability scanner, but no one is trained to use it and the report aren't shared. That's a support failure. After applying clause 7, a trained analyst is assigned to run a scan. Results are shared with IT and leadership weekly. A procedure is documented to track findings and remediation. Now the VM process is clear, supported, and effective. Now, why this clause matter? Well, without support, security tools go unused. Staff don't know what to do. Vulnerability pile up and no one is responsible. With clause 7, people are enabled and empowered. Vulnerability management becomes a team effort. The ISMS has a strong operational backbone. In summary, clause 7 makes sure your vulnerability management and all your security work has the people, tool, knowledge, and the communication it needs to succeed. I hope clause 7 is understood a little better than earlier. Now, next is clause 8. Well, what is clause 8 about? Well, clause 8 is where planning turns into action. In earlier clauses, you defined your risk, chose your goals, and assigned responsibilities. Now, clause 8 asks, how are you putting that plan into motion on a daily basis? It focuses on doing the work, which is running the process, managing the risk, and responding to issues in a controlled and documented ways. Key requirements of clause 8, what are those? Well, there are three. One is operational planning and control, risk assessment when needed, risk treatment as planned. Simply put, it has to make sure your security processes like the VM, backups, access control are running as planned. It's about reassessing the risk when things change, like new projects, vendors, or systems. It's about applying your chosen control, like patching, firewalls, or secure coding to treat the risk. What this means for vulnerability management? Well, clause 8 gives you the green light to run your VM operations, including running vulnerability scans and assessment, tracking vulnerabilities and assigning owners, remediating issues through patching, hardening, or compensating control, keeping a log of actions taken, timelines, and approvals, adapting your process when there's a new threat or system update. Example, let's say your security team identifies critical vulnerability in your customer portal. Under clause 8, the issue is logged in the vulnerability tracking system. IT is assigned to fix within 5 days. Do note, this is an example. And after patching, the system is rescanned to confirm closure. The incident and the actions are documented for audit review. That's clause 8 in action. Turning policies into real world actions. Now, why clause 8 matters? Well, without effective operation, risks are only identified but never acted on. Vulnerabilities stay open, exposing the businesses. No one can prove that security activities are actually happening. But with clause 8, you move from plans to result. Vulnerability management becomes a repeatable, measurable, and audit ready process. The ISMS becomes active, not passive. Well, clause 8 is where security plans like vulnerability management are put into real day to day action to reduce risk and protect your system. Moving to clause 9, performance evaluation. Now, what is clause 9 about? Clause 9 focuses on checking how well your information system or security system is working. In simple terms, are we doing what we said we would, and is it actually working? It requires organization to measure, review and improve their security activities, including vulnerability management. What are the key elements of clause 9? Well, there are three primarily, which is monitoring, measurement, analysis and evaluation. That's first. Internal audit and management review. Well, in simple language, it means track and evaluate how well your controls and processes are working. Regularly review your ISMS, including vulnerability management, to check compliance and identify gaps. Top leadership must review performance and make decisions to improve. What this means for vulnerability management? Well, clause 9 encourages you to treat vulnerability management as a measurable business function, not just a technical task. Here's what that looks like. You track metrics like number of open vulnerabilities, time to remediate, percentage of critical issues resolved in time. That's first. Second, conduct internal audits of your VM process to verify patch cycles are being followed, ensure scan results are documented, identify missed steps or accountability gaps, or present report to leadership that shows trends in vulnerability exposure, progress against goals, areas needing investment or change. An example, let's say your goal is to resolve high risk vulnerability within 7 days. Each month, you review data from your VM platform. You find that only 60% of the issues are resolved on time. This insight is shared in a management review meeting. Leadership agrees to increase patching support for key systems. That's clause 9 in action. Measuring, learning, and improving. So, why clause 9 matters? Well, without performance evaluation, you don't know if your security work is effective. You don't know whether problems can go unnoticed until it is too late. Improvements are based on guesswork, not data. That is, if there is no performance evaluation. But with clause 9, you have a clear picture of what's working and what's not. Vulnerability management becomes accountable and visible. Decisions are driven by facts, not assumption. Simply put, clause 9 helps organization measure and evaluate their information security programs, including vulnerability management, so they can make smart data driven improvements. Coming on to clause 10. What is clause 10 about? Well, clause 10 is about making sure your ISMS doesn't just stand still. It keeps getting better. In simple terms, learn from the mistake, fix problems, and continuously improve your security processes. There are two key elements in clause 10. One is non-conformity and corrective action, and continual improvement. What does it mean? Well, in simple language, when something goes wrong, that is missed patch or late responses, fix it and stop it from happening again. Or always look for ways to make your ISMS and your security process better. What this means for vulnerability management? Well, vulnerability management must evolve constantly, and clause 10 makes sure it does. Well, here's how Clause 10 supports the vulnerability management. If a security incident happens because of an unpatched system, investigate what went wrong. Apply a corrective action like changing patch management procedure. If your VM audit shows delay in scanning or response, it updates process or assigns more resources. If a tool are outdated or reporting is unclear, it replace or upgrade them as part of continuous improvement. This is how Clause 10 supports vulnerability management. As an example, let's say your scan report shows that some critical system weren't been scanned for 3 months. Under Clause 10, you log this as non-conformity. Investigate why. Maybe the scan schedule was misconfigured. You fix the problem and add a double check step in future scan cycle. You also train the team to prevent recurrence. That's corrective action and continuous improvement in practice. Now, why Clause 10 matters? Well, without improvement, problem repeats. Risks grow silently. VM process becomes outdated or ineffective. Without improvement, you miss chance to get better and stay secure. But with Clause 10, you build a culture of learning, adapting, and growing. Vulnerability management becomes smarter, faster, and more reliable over time. Your ISMS proves it's not just active but evolving. In a simple language, Clause 10 ensures that vulnerability management and your entire security system doesn't just respond to problems but learn from them and keeps improving. I hope this gives you a complete perspective on the important clauses. Let's now look at a summary view on controls mapped to the VM processes. Take this as a screenshot. Now this gives you a view about the life cycle and the clauses in ISO 27001, how they are mapped out. So it is VM with respect to 27001. Now let's look at the metrics and the KPIs for ISO 27001 audits. Well, why are metrics and KPI important in ISO 27001? Well, metrics and KPIs, or the key performance indicator, help answer two big questions. Is your information security management system working well? Or can you prove it during an audit? In simple terms, what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed gets improved. Auditor want to see evidence that you are not just saying you care about security, but you are actually tracking and improving it. So what kind of metrics should you track? Well, ISO 27001 doesn't give you a fixed list of metrics. Instead, it asks you to choose what matters most to your organization. Track things that shows performance and improvement. Let's break it into two categories. The general ISMS metrics, that's clause 9, which is number of security incident or risk treatment effectiveness or internal audit findings or corrective actions tracked and resolved, policies and procedure update frequency, staff security training completion. These are metrics. In plain language, it means how often things go wrong. Example, breaches, phishing, malware. Or have you chosen controls which are reducing the risk? How many issues were found during internal reviews? Or are you fixing problems quickly and completely? Are you documenting an up-to-date area, and are they aligned with real-world changes? Or is your team aware and trained on security practices? Well, from a vulnerability management KPI perspective, which is aligned to 27001 controls, there are few, like number of detected vulnerabilities. time to remediate critical issues, percentage of systems covered by regular scans, or percentage of overdue patches, or vulnerability recurrence rate, or SLA compliance for remediation, or risk rating before and after treatment. These are metrics. Now, why does it matter for ISO 27001? Well, it shows how actively you are identifying the weaknesses. Measure how fast you are fixing high risk profile. It proves scanning is consistent and covers the full scope. It helps identify gaps in patch management and control effectiveness. It shows whether problems are being properly resolved, or it confirms teams are meeting the internal target and also demonstrate the actual risk reduction over time. So, how do you make metrics audit ready? Well, you can start off by defining the ownership. There are a few steps. One of them is defining, which is know who is responsible for collecting and analyzing the data. Second is use a visual dashboard. Make trends easy to see, monthly reports, charts, heat maps, etc. Track trends over time. Well, auditors like to see improvement, not just numbers. Tie the metrics to your objective, like linking the KPI to the goal of from clause 1. That's clause 1 is planning. Example, suppose your goal is to fix critical vulnerability in 7 days. Your VM dashboard should show 92% resolved within SLA as an example, or 2 repeat incidents due to poor patch testing, or a plan to improve testing and validation. Well, this example, this proves that you are tracking performance, you identified problems, you are taking corrective actions. This aligns beautifully with clause 6, which is planning, with clause 9, which is evaluation, and clause 10, which is improvement. In summary, metrics and KPIs in ISO 27001 shows whether your security processes, including vulnerability management, are effective, improving, and audit ready. Now let's look at integrating VM into ISO risk treatment plan. So what is a risk treatment plan in ISO 27001? In ISO 27001, once you identify a security risk, you need a plan to deal with them. This is called risk treatment plan. Think of it like a to-do list for reducing the risk. What's the risk? What will we do about it? Who is responsible and when will it be done? That's the thought process expected at this. So what is the role of VM? Well, vulnerabilities like unpatched software, misconfigured systems, or outdated tools are a major source of information security risk. That's why a good risk treatment plan must include finding vulnerabilities, assessing their risk, deciding how to treat them. VM becomes a practical way to treat real risk. So, how to integrate VM into risk treatment process? A step-by-step guide. Well, first, identify the risk. Second, assess the risk level. Third, decide on a treatment option. Fourth, create an action plan. Fifth, track and review. In simple language, it means run your vulnerability scan, audits, config review, and spot the weakness. Use the CVSS, business impact, and exploitability to prioritize whether it is high, medium, and low. Choose how to handle each vulnerabilities. Fix it, either patching, hardening, or reconfigure, or reduce it with compensating control like firewalls or monitoring, or avoid it by decommissioning the system, or accept it, document it. These are low risk exceptions. Next is, for each risk, define the task, timelines, owner, and approval flows. And last is, use VM dashboards and risk register to monitor treatment status effectively. As a simple example, let's say your VM scan finds a high risk SQL injection vulnerability in a customer portal. Risk is logged in the ISM risk register. It's classified as critical. The treatment plan says fix the code, apply a WAF, train the dev team. The owner is a lead you have identified. The deadline is 7 days. Status is tracked and reviewed in a monthly security committee meeting. That's full integration of vulnerability management into the ISO 27001 risk treatment process. A good example. Now, what's the benefit of integration? Well, it ensures vulnerabilities are not just logged but managed as business risks, makes auditing easier since every issue has a documented action plan. Align the security work with ISO 27001's clause 6, which is planning, and clause 8, which is operation. Enhance visibility for leadership and compliance team. So these are the benefits of integration. In summary, integrating vulnerability management into ISO 27001 risk treatment plan ensures that technical weaknesses are managed like any other business risk with clear actions, ownership, and accountability. Let's now look at challenges and remediation strategies. Well, implementing ISO 27001 isn't just about ticking the boxes. It's about building a living, breathing security system that protects your organization. Along the way, many real world challenges can slow things down or cause gaps, especially when it comes to vulnerability management. Now, let's try to explore those challenges and look at how it can be fixed. Well, the top challenges first is lack of management support. Now, why does it happen? Well, leadership sees ISO 27001 as it's just an IT job or a compliance checkbox. Now, how do we remediate it? Well, involve the leadership early. Tie security goals to business goals. Report metrics in management review. The second challenge is poor asset inventory. Now, why does it happen? Well, organizations don't know what systems they need to protect. So, how do you remediate such a situation? Well, build and maintain a detailed asset registry, including shadow IT and cloud systems. The next major challenge is inconsistent risk assessment. Now, why it happens? Well, risk rating vary between departments or are outdated. Now, to address it, you can use a standardized risk assessment method, example risk metrics or CVSS, and update it regularly. The next one is weak vulnerability management process. Why it happens? Well, that's because scans might be irregular, fixes delayed or scope incomplete. In such cases, how do you manage it? Well, you need to schedule regular scans, set SLAs for patching, and include VM in your risk treatment plans. Next is overly complex documentation. Well, too many documents written in jargons and which is hard to maintain. So, how do you address it? Well, simplify and standardize the documentation. Focus on what's useful and practical to you and your organization. Next is lack of staff's awareness or training. Why it happens? Because employees don't know their role in security. So how do you address it? You run regular training, phishing simulation, and awareness campaign. The next challenge is ineffective monitoring and measurement. Why? Because no one tracks how well security is working. To address this, we need to define meaningful KPIs. Example, patching timelines, open vulnerability, and need to be reviewed monthly. The next major challenge is manual processes that causes delay. Which is why it happens, because there is over reliance on spreadsheets, emails, or manual logs. You can address it by using automation tools for ticketing, reporting, scanning, and risk tracking. The next is Poor integration with business process. Why does it happen? Well, security feels disconnected from development, procurement, or operations. So, in order to address it, align your ISO 27000 with DevSecOps, change management, and third party onboarding. The last is fear of audit findings. Why this happens? Team hides issue or delay fixes to avoid negative audit outcomes. This happens most often. So, how do you address it? Well, you need to foster a culture of transparency. Treat audit as improvement tool, not blame game. From a challenge specific to vulnerability management, well, missing the scan coverage. Well, map the scan to update asset inventory. Delayed patching due to business constraint. How do you remediate it? Well, use risk-based prioritization and compensating controls. Use those controls. Use those compensating controls if you can't remediate it. The next challenge is no formal SLA for fixing the vulnerabilities. Well, you can address it by defining and enforcing vulnerability SLAs in your risk treatment plan. The next challenge is lack of integration with change management. You can easily address it by linking the remediation to ticketing and change advisory board process or your CAP process. The next major challenge is weak reporting on VM metrics. You can easily address by building simple dashboards showing open issues, remediation progress, and risk trends. In simple line, ISO 27001 success depends on more than compliance. It requires leadership, support, good planning, practical execution, and continuous improvement of both process and people. Let's now try to look at the benefits of ISO 27001 driving vulnerability management integration. Well, it helps big way. Integrating VM into ISO 27001 Information Security Management System or ISMS isn't just about compliance. It's about making security work smarter, faster, and better. Here's what your organization gains when VM is aligned with ISO 27001. First, better risk visibility and prioritization. What it means? Well, ISO 27001 helps you identify what's most important to protect. When VM is part of that system, you can focus on vulnerability that truly matters to the business, not just chase every alert. Benefit: you prioritize high risk issue first and reduce the chance of critical security breaches. Second benefit: structured and repeatable security process. What it means? It means ISO 27001 encourages documented processes and regular review. When you apply this to VM, you move from ad hoc scan to regular, planned, and measurable security routines. The benefit: fewer surprises, fewer mispatches, and a VM process that improves over time. Third benefit: stronger compliance and audit readiness. What it means? It means VM is a key requirement in many organizations. Example: GDPR, RBI, HIPAA. Okay, ISO 27001 help track, document, and demonstrate your effort during audits. The benefit: less stress during audit. You'll have a clear evidence of patching timelines, scan logs, and risk treatment action. Next benefit is improved coordination between teams. What it means? Well, ISO 27001 promotes assigning clear roles and responsibilities. When applied to VM, it ensures IT, security team, DevOps team, and leadership know their part in finding and fixing these vulnerabilities. Benefit: faster remediation and fewer gaps due to miscommunication or unclear ownership. Next benefit is measurable security improvement over time. It means ISO 27000 focuses on performance metrics, which is clause 9, and continuous improvement, clause 10. VM becomes a trackable business function with dashboard, goals, and regular reviews. The benefit? You can show leadership how vulnerability risks are going down and prove the value of your security investment. Right? Now, sixth, security culture and awareness across organization. The benefit is when VM is part of 27001, it's not just a job for the IT team. It becomes part of the organization security mindset through awareness, training, and defined policies. The benefit? Employees become more proactive and systems are hardened across the board, not just scanned. The seventh, seamless integration with risk treatment plan. Well, VM findings are mapped to 27,000 risk treatment plan. That means even vulnerabilities is tracked as a business risk, not just a technical issue. The benefit? Stronger governance, easier prioritization, and a clear link between scans and board level decisions. The eighth benefit, it builds customer and partner trust. When customer sees you are ISO 27001 certified and your VM program is active, they know you take security seriously. The benefit? Increased trust, better reputation, and stronger chance of winning new businesses, especially in a regulated industry like BFSI or telecom sector. In summary, integrating vulnerability management into ISO 27001 helps organization prioritize risk, automate controls, track progress, prepare for audit, and create a culture of proactive security, turning compliance into real world protection. Now, to help with the whole process, let's try to go through the checklist. For some, this might be much more useful or how to implement it. We discussed this. It starts with maintaining a documented vulnerability management policy aligned with ISO 27,000 clauses. So you can pause the screen, take a screenshot. What I've tried to show you, what we discussed earlier, but in a flow format, is steps and the reference clauses. I hope this helps you to plan your strategy, think through about how you want to break up each of individual tasks that is shown here. You can assign resources, you can get your sponsors, and plan your strategy on the next step forward. You can pause the screen, take a screenshot, or you can take the details of this and then move forward. This is the next one, which shows your controls and the relevance. Again, a reference material for you. Now, what you see is a comparison table between NIST CSF, OWASP 27001, which we covered till now. I've added the CISA as well as the SANS from VM perspective. I hope this gives you a holistic view on how VM stands against this different guidelines, standards. The workflow that I showed earlier, I have tried to put up a tabulation around that. So maybe this should help you to get the full picture. So you can use this with this reference. You can build on it. Well, in an era where cyber threats are relentless and vulnerabilities can be weaponized within hours of discovery, organizations can no longer afford a fragmented or reactive approach to vulnerability management. To build a resilient, proactive, and continuously improving VM program, organization must draw upon the strengths of multiple frameworks, each contributing unique perspective and capabilities. That's what I tried to show in these 4 videos, especially in the last table where I added 2 more of the frameworks. The idea here is to give you a 360-degree view about how things stand when you touch this space of vulnerability management. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework or CSF serves as a foundational guide, offering a high level risk based structure that aligns VM activities with broader cybersecurity objectives. Its 5 core functions, which is identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, support the creation of a life cycle driven VM process that connects asset management, risk prioritization, and incident recovery. It ensures that vulnerabilities are not merely fixed but are understood, managed, and contextualized within the organization's risk appetite. When we look at OWASP, the OWASP tactical or testing guide complements the strategy lens of NIST CSF by offering deep technical insight into application level vulnerabilities. It brings structured penetration testing and test cases that addresses the dynamic nature of modern web applications, APIs, business logics, and client-side risk. OWASP allows vulnerability management teams to move beyond patching infrastructure to protecting code, data, and logics, ensuring that digital transformation doesn't outpace secure development. ISO 27001 provides the governance structure needed to formalize the VM within the broader information security management system. Through clauses like A8.8, which is management of technical vulnerabilities, and supporting policies on asset control, monitoring, and improvement, ISO 27001 enables organization to embed vulnerability detection, prioritization, remediation, and audit readiness into core business processes. This governance centric view ensures accountability, documentation, continual improvement, and compliance essential for regulated sectors like BFSI and telecom. In conclusion, in today's risk landscape, vulnerability management is not just a technical necessity, it's a strategic imperative. ISO 27001 provides the governance, risk alignment, and control framework to embed VM deeply into the organization ISMS. When VM is aligned with ISO 27001 lifecycle, from planning and operation to audit and improvement, it transforms into a proactive, resilient, and business aligned function. By implementing ISO 27001, not only as a compliance standard but as a continuous improvement model, organizations can ensure that their vulnerability exposure is constantly monitored, minimized, and communicated, ultimately strengthening their overall cyber security posture. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency or CISA reinforce VM with real-time situational awareness. Through publications like the Known Exploited Vulnerabilities or KEEF catalogs, Vulnerability Advisory, and National Coordination on Zero-Day Threat, CISA helps organizations focus on what truly matters. Its intelligence-driven approach ensures that vulnerability remediation is not solely CVSS based but context aware, exploit aware, and threat informed, making prioritization smarter and response faster. When you look at from SANS perspective, the SANS top 20 critical security controls provide a practical and operation focused roadmap to mature a VM program. Controls such as asset inventory, secure configuration, continuous vulnerability management, and penetration testing translates governance and framework guidelines into actionable day-to-day security practice. SANS enables organization to evolve from reactive patching to predictive, disciplined, and performance-driven VM operations. A convergence, a unified approach to VM. By harmonizing these 5 approaches, organization can build a comprehensive, adaptable, and threat resilient VM ecosystem. NIST CSF, it brings risk-based structure and life cycle integration. The OWASP is a technical testing depth for application security. ISO 27001, it's about governance, audit readiness, and documentation. CISA, threat intelligence and exploit-driven responses. SANS, operational best practices and control maturity. This convergence ensure coverage from governance to ground level execution, from cloud to code, and from boardroom KPI to SOC alerts. Now this is an extra just for those audience who had asked for the top ports which were exploited. The numbers could or the details could go on a different hierarchy, depends on the source that you have taken from. More of an addendum. Now what's the recommendation? Well, to mitigate risk associated with these ports, the ports that are listed, regularly update and patch the systems and application to address known vulnerabilities. Implement network segmentation to limit exposures of critical services. Use firewalls and intrusion detection prevention system to monitor and control traffic. Disable unnecessary services and ports to reduce the attack surface. Conduct regularly security assessment and penetration testing to identify and remediate vulnerabilities. In conclusion, in vulnerability management, no single framework is sufficient on its own. NIST helps you structure. OWASP helps you discover. ISO ensures you govern. CISA makes you threat aware. And SANS makes you operationally disciplined. When applied collectively, NIST CSF tells you why and when to manage vulnerabilities. OWASP shows you how to find them. ISO defines how to govern and sustain a program. CISA helps you prioritize under real world threat pressures. SANS help you build a capable team and operationalize best practice. The result is a robust, repeatable, and measurable VM program that not only reduces technical depth but strengthens cyber resilience, regulatory posture, and stakeholder trust. In conclusion, as I said, vulnerability management must no longer be seen as a security task. It's a strategic enabler for organizational resilience. By weaving together these leading frameworks, organizations transform VM into a value generating, risk reducing force, ready not just to respond to today's threat but to anticipate tomorrow's risk. With this, we have come to the last part of this 4-part series on vulnerability management. We have covered quite a few areas. We discussed this over this last part. So what you see on the screen is the part 4 agenda. We have touched base and gone deeper in some areas. On some we have touched at the top. The whole idea is to provide you with a context. I hope this has helped you. So, in conclusion, now I would like to come to close this session. I want to leave you with one insight, which is in today's cyber landscape, vulnerability management isn't just about patching holes. It's about building a structured, governed, and an intelligent approach to risk. And to truly do it, that's no single framework is enough. Each of the five we explored in the last four videos, including this, brings something unique to the table. The NIST CSF gives you a strategic blueprint, the why, the when, and the how, for aligning vulnerability management with enterprise risk. When we looked at OWASP testing guide, it drills deep into the technical side, helping us test and protect the core of our apps, APIs, and business logics. The ISO 27001, when we looked at it, brings governance, structure, and audit readiness, embedding vulnerability management into the very DNA of our information security management system. The CISA arms us with real world threat intelligence, prioritizing what's been exploited in the wild, not just what's rated high in theory. And SANS, it gives us the control, the maturity model, and the operations muscle to put it all in practice, day in and day out. Do note, I have only touched base on CISA and SANS. But if after review you think I need a separate session on CISA and SANS, do let me know. Do send me a note, do comment it, and I will be more than happy to create it. Together, they create a complete ecosystem, from code to cloud, from audit to alert, and from governance board to ground level operations. So here's the takeaway. Use NIST CSF to structure your program. Apply OWASP to find real weakness. Govern using ISO 27001 to ensure accountability. Prioritize smarter with CISA intelligence and execute consistently using the SANS best practices. Because when you integrate these framework, vulnerability management evolves from a reactive function to a proactive business enabler. If this session helped simplify this powerful framework for you, drop a comment, share your thought, and tell us how your organization is approaching vulnerability management. Yes, do not forget to subscribe if you think this has added value to your table. Hit the like button, tap the bell icon so you don't miss out on our upcoming deep dives into audit, compliance, cyber risk, and everything in between. I would like to now thank my guide, Dr. Ganapati, Professor Kalbhairav, Vakratundam. Thank you all for the time that you have invested. Thank you for all the guidance, feedbacks, and the support. And all the Ganas in the backend team who helped me build this up together, the technical support. Thank you very much. Until next time, this is your host, Savit Vittal Salian, signing off. Let's keep building a safer digital future, one control at a time. Namaskar.